What do Larry David, a locked steering wheel, an angry New Jersey paramedic, and friendship all have in common? Chris Baccash, former Business World scion, professional cyclist, and long legged lady killer, turned high school math teacher, positive psychology practitioner, and a one woman snuggle bug, with a little help from Sturgill Simpson. Come take a ride on the positive side, because I promise this is going to be positively ridiculous. Hi there. My name is Rebecca Scout Sanders, and I was the run-of-the-mill skeptic, pessimist, and depressive personality I killed at parties until I studied positive psychology. Now I host Positively Ridiculous podcast, where we discuss the positive impacts of everyday people, places, and practices that bring happiness, inspire hope, and build flourishing communities in the most unassuming ways. We look at these subjects through the lens of positive psychology and how its science and application can and is improving our lives while riding shotgun with a self-admitted skeptic. So buckle up, Buttercup, and come take a ride on the positive side. Hi there, you groupies for good, and happy Tuesday. Welcome to Positively Ridiculous Podcast. I'm your host, Scout Sanders, accompanied by the fuzzy to my wuzzy, Dagny Joy. I'm stoked to deliver today's episode because I get to introduce you to my friend, Chris Baccash, a small town boy from Doylestown, Pennsylvania, with a big story, a big heart, and one beautiful life to share with us. Before introducing you to Chris, I wanted to apologize for the hiatus. We were all asked together several weeks ago discussing character strengths, taking the VIA survey, and going on an epic journey of self-discovery when Lisbon delivered the show under a whole new URL and RSS feed, making it impossible to find me. So hopefully that has all worked out, and we can all continue this campaign for the ridiculous together without having to resubscribe, follow, comment, or re-like the show or its page. But please do that if you're a new listener to the show or one of our longtime groupies, because this kind of stuff seems to really matter in the podcast world, and you matter to me. And I want to know that you are enjoying the show and that it makes a difference in your life, no matter how small, because we're here for good. We have also had a lot of growth in a short amount of time. If you remember from the last episode, we reached 16 countries, and I attempted to say hello in about 10 different languages. That went well, mostly, but I'm pretty sure South Korea hates me now, but I continue to hope for reconciliation. Today's episode continues into the character strengths and virtue world as Chris takes us on a hike of the Appalachian Trail and into the back of an ambulance where we encounter an angry New Jersey paramedic. Better than a bear? Maybe. But before we start digging around into Chris's past, unlock his secrets, and hard-won wisdom, let's take a few moments to appreciate his terrible impersonations of New Yorkers and then my lame attempt to follow suit.
Okay, listen, this one time, I was outside of the theater here in town, and a guy walks across the street, and this guy looks like he's got something to tell me. And also, this guy looks exactly like Larry David.
All right? Larry David of all people. Larry David of all people.
To a T, with the hair, he's tall, and he's walking towards me like he's mad at me. And he walks up to me, and he goes, "Listen, do you have any mechanical sense?"
Mechanical sense?
Do you have any mechanical sense?
Does he want you to fix his car?
Yeah, as if like I had just walked into his house and broken his dishwasher, right? and so I says to the guy, "That depends." And then he gestures towards car. He's like, "Look, I'm in there trying to turn the car on, and it just won't go. The steering wheel, it's all stuck." So I'm like, "Hey man, this is gonna blow your mind. but put your foot on the brake, yank the wheel a little bit, turn the key, you'll be all right. And
Yank
then
Just yank it a little bit.
Just yank it a little bit. Just, give it some oomph. And he gestures like he wants me to come into the car. I'm like, listen, man, I just met you. I'm not getting into your freaking car. All right?
This is getting awkward. This is a kidnapping.
It's like, listen, Larry David, you've got resources. You can deal with this yourself. That's a true story.
So did that happen today?
No, this happened in probably March.
In March.
Mary Grace and I like to walk around town at night with like a thermos of decaf and just people watch, especially on like Saturday nights when the drunkards are out.
Sure. Well,
and Larry David was there, so it's great.
So it was actually Larry David, and he didn't know how to start his car.
Yeah, Larry David doesn't know how a steering wheel lock works.
The thing is this doesn't surprise me. Like,
it's a safety feature.
What is it with these safety features? They're everywhere.
That reminds me of another story.
That just makes me laugh. Yeah, tell me all the stories you want. I'm here for the story.
Here's another vignette from a guy from Queens. And we're camping up in the Poconos, which gets a lot of New Yorkers.
Yeah,
which is fine.
Poconos. It's great. It's wonderful.
Yeah, love them to death. So we're up there Memorial Day this year, having a time. I'm sauteing some mushrooms. Oh. And there's a family across the street from us in the next campsite over. Mm-hmm. And it's a big family. They're running around. And this grandfather of the group is just nailing these one-liners. Mm-hmm. His granddaughter had drew him a picture in the dirt. And his first thing he chooses to say about it is, what is that? What is that, a groundhog or is that a hedgehog? What is that?
It's in the hog family, but I just don't know which.
It's definitely a hog, but am I a hedgehog, groundhog? Don't know.
Maybe it's a hog. I don't know. Is it a hog? I don't know.
And then eventually it quiets down. It's evening time. Sun is kind of going down. And he's laying there in his chair with his head up to the sky, and he just belts out, "What's with all these trees?"
Okay, so the only thing that makes this better is if this grandpa is sitting there in a Burka lounger with an I Love New York t-shirt and a Yankee cap on. That is what would make this.
Yeah. It was kind of like that. I just love that he's gone camping. He's been there for 2 days. And just then it hits them surrounded by trees.
and it's the trees. Like, and what are the trees doing there? Like, are they supposed to be here? Have they got a license to be here?
They said, "Are you all natural?"
Yes. Do you have a permit? To be here?
That's it, man.
Bark. I'm allergic to bark.
It's with all these trees.
What are all these trees doing here? So, do you want to tell me how you earned the moniker or the nickname "All Legs, No Heart"?
No. You're getting it wrong. It's all legs, no love.
All legs, no love?
Yeah.
Oh, so you have a heart. You just don't love. Got it. Okay. Yeah. So
the question I think you posed that jogged my memory of that story is, if your worst enemy named your memoir, what would it be?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the perfect answer, and I'm excited to tell you why.
So, all right. Yeah. So that was part of the questionnaire. And whenever I read this, all legs, no love, right? That's what it said. I was like, oh, this has to be related to his ex-girlfriends. Like, this has to be related to relationships. This has to be somehow related to someone who he has spurned. And then come to find out, it's not just one lady who had this opinion of you, but maybe several. And
no, it's all of them. It's all of them.
So how many are we counting into all?
I don't know, Scout, because it was a dream.
Countless. Oh.
Countless. Let me tell you the story.
All right.
So I am sleeping peacefully. This is
as one does.
Several years ago, in the height of my pursuit to be a professional bike racer.
Okay.
And I'm getting close. I am racing in professional races. I am
Mhm.
sometimes doing well in those races, and I'm training like an absolute madman.
Yeah.
And that is key here. Another key fact is that I'm built like a clothespin.
Yeah,
Where
you're 6'4". I mean, you're 6'4", and
6'3", 6'3",
oh, well, I'm sorry. Oh, well,
6'4" with dress shoes.
men like to be given an inch or two.
Mhm.
So yeah, you're a tall guy, and you do have the leg to pull it off.
Mostly limbs. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I have a dream. I wake up in my dream in a hotel,
Mhm.
and a nice hotel, maybe a Holiday Inn. And I get out of my room, and I start to walk down towards the lobby, probably to go get a coffee.
Sure.
And as I'm walking towards the lobby, you got to pass all of those rooms that are sometimes used, and one of them was the grand ballroom.
Hmm.
And I peek my head around the corner.
Can I just stop you right there? I just want to interrupt you because what you're describing to me, it feels a little Shining-ish. Like you're describing walking down this hallway, and maybe there's a cracked door, maybe there's not, and then there's a ballroom that you peek your head into. Are you about to go jack on me? Like,
No, nobody gets hurt. I just get humiliated.
oh, perfect. Go on.
So I peek my head into the ballroom, and in there is every woman I have ever dated.
All three of them.
Oh, that's generous. So all of them, and we'll let your audience imagine if that's one person or more.
Well, let's just make this clear. You're more about quality, not quantity.
At this point, yes.
Okay.
And in there, they're having a convention
Mm.
where they are aligning themselves on a national smear campaign that they are going to launch against me. And they are at the point of their conference where they are voting on the tagline and slogan for their national smear campaign against me.
Oh, that's easy. It's Chris Baccash must die.
No. They cut much deeper than that, and they
Ooh.
all started chanting in unison, "All legs, no love." And they all turned to me, and then I ran out of the hotel.
What would have
And
been face it like a man, Baccash. I mean, what would have made that even more nightmarish is if they all turned around in unison, locked eyes on you, and all started chanting, "All legs, no love," and like started to follow you out of the hotel
no,
room.
that's exactly what happened. I
Is
wasn't
it?
clear in my
Oh
telling.
well,
Yes,
you're welcome.
yeah.
I created
Now,
that.
what would have been the ultimate irony is if, as I turned to run, my legs were gone.
Oh, this is called karma.
Yeah. So what this there's a teachable moment in here, and it
I'll do
was
it.
that in training 20 hours a week and spending every weekend traveling to a bike race or on my bicycle or doing something tangentially related to becoming a professional athlete, many of my relationships, some romantic, some friendships, some familial, were secondary. I
Yeah.
still knew that they were important. I still loved many people. I was still very friendly,
Hmm.
but I don't think I was being a good friend or a good partner to some people during that time.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, though, I don't necessarily want to fault you for that because, all right,
Yeah, I don't regret it. It was
yeah,
just
I
that
mean,
was
you
the time
have
in my
a
life.
yeah, and so this is the thing is just like whenever you're a person that sets high goals and sets high challenges for yourself, there's people that are either going to be on board with that in your life or people that aren't, and that's really going to be up to them because somebody who it would be different if perhaps now family I'm putting family to the side of this comment. It would be
Mhm.
different perhaps if someone new entered your life knowing very full well that this was a pursuit and that this was a pursuit that was time consuming and challenging and that it would be all engrossing And if you were new to the situation and you were willing to come on board, then you can't really complain, right? You knew what the risks were going to be. You knew it would be challenging, and you just found out that it wasn't for you. And that's unfortunate, but then you move on, right? You just kind of thank the person for the opportunity, wish them the best, and go on about your life. But and and with family, obviously, those are relationships that are supposed to be more enduring, more long lasting. And sometimes in our lives, again, whenever we set high goals or we just reorganize our lives or our priorities, I think family's supposed to support us through that as well. And I mean, obviously, though, if someone is dying or if there's like financial hardship and there's, and you're kind of abandoning your family in that moment, I mean, that's a reason to take issue. But I mean, people have to understand high achievers, there's sacrifices to be made in relationships and association. I mean, am I wrong? Do you not feel the same way? Or do you tell me, Chris? Tell me.
I don't know. I don't necessarily think it has to be that way in every instance of high achievement.
Mm-hmm. Tell me more. So what do you think? So do you think that, so I'm obviously playing devil's advocate, right? So do you think that you did act selfishly in trying to achieve that goal?
Yes, I think that I was not in the right balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that had I been in a better balance, maybe I would have had better success in achieving my goals because I would have been happier or would have been more motivated to optimize further. Who knows? But I don't think it has to be that. In my instance, it didn't have to be that way. I could have done a better job to be more balanced.
Well, I'm glad that you say that because this kind of is a good segue into the question about your top 5 character strengths, right? And so I'm guessing that resilience is probably one of them. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. So go ahead and tell us what the other 4 are before I go on.
I don't remember all 5 of them, but I know that every time I've taken the test, resilience, humor, which I identify more with the old definition of humor, which was humor and playfulness.
Uh-huh.
I identify more with the playfulness side of it.
I wonder if Larry David would say the same thing.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Yeah. So resilience, humor, and love are usually in the top 3.
Okay. So I think it's a good question to ask or a good point to bring up is, whenever we talk about our character strengths, they are the best part of us. They really are what drives us in life. They're really kind of what makes our soul sing. But at the same time, whenever we're not balanced, like you had said, and we're definitely leaning one way more than the other and not really seeking a middle ground, that's whenever our character strengths can become toxic, right? It's like sometimes resiliency or this idea of accomplishment drives you so far in the direction in which you want to go, but maybe not in the direction that you need to go with the people that could best support you. Because sometimes, we might focus just too much on being resilient on our own and not sharing our strength and our time with the people who love us the most and who want to support us the most.
Yeah, strength overdone is a weakness.
Yeah. Just like sometimes you can be too honest, or sometimes you can be too brave, things like that. Yeah.
There are contexts for our strengths that make them the best. Yeah. Humor is not always appropriate.
Yeah. Like for instance, maybe whenever this is really awkward actually. So this was whenever, I was still a nurse, and I was at the bedside in a critical care unit. There was a patient that we were having a family discussion with about
possibility of withdrawing care. And, I'm at a very large teaching hospital, and this kid walks in. I shouldn't call him a kid. He's, he was older than me at the time, but um, what is age but a number? Because mentally and emotionally, this guy wasn't set up for success at that point. And so he walks in, and he cracks some kind of joke, just because he wanted to lighten the mood, because everybody's face was just kind of so forlorn, because we were talking about a very serious situation. And he walks in and he cracks this joke, and you could just hear a pin drop, and everybody turns around and they look at this kid, and they're just, side eye, kind of like, really, really, Junior, this is the time you choose. And all he can do at that point is, just kind of hang his head and just stand there against the wall and look pretty. But yeah, sometimes, like, you're right, context is everything, timing is everything. And we just have to be respectful, I think, of individuals, and then also moments of when we should make ourselves shine, and then whenever we should choose to allow others to shine. I think it's important that we discuss something that's very close to your heart, and something that you've been very passionate about ever since you were a graduate student at the University of Pennsylvania, getting your master's of applied positive psychology. So there's always a project at the end of any kind of arduous academic endeavor, and that happened to be the capstone project there at Penn. And why don't you walk me through what your capstone was about?
Definitely. So before I tell you what it was about, I'll tell you what it was like to decide what to write about, which may be the hardest part of writing.
Yeah.
People started talking about their capstone project the first week of the graduate school program. And I sat back and thought, well, good for them. I'm a little jealous. And I don't think I'm going to know what I'm going to write about until May.
Yeah.
and I toiled through a couple ideas, but I didn't have a strong idea until somebody on the faculty said, think about the one thing that for you makes life worth living.
Mm.
And maybe write about that.
Mm.
And then I knew I was going to write about friendship.
Oh, wow.
And then to get inspired, after the school year had ended and we had the summer to write the capstone, I went hiking. I went up to Maine, and I climbed a few of the most beautiful mountains in the northeastern United States.
Mm-hmm.
And I climbed one that has the northern terminus of the Appalachian Trail, Mount Katahdin.
Okay.
And I get to the top of Mount Katahdin, and this is in early July, right when I was really needing to make some creative progress on the capstone. And there's a group of people holding this ceremony. They're all holding hands, and they're walking towards the sign that says, "You have finished the Appalachian Trail."
Mm-hmm.
And they all place their hand on the sign at the same exact time. And then they start to celebrate and cry and embrace each other.
Wow.
So I'm standing there watching this. And then, like any responsible social researcher, I walked up to them and said, "Can I record an interview?" and they complied.
Awesome.
And I made a mistake. I thought that they had known each other for a long time and they had hiked the trail together in its entirety.
Mm-hmm.
That was not the case.
Wow. Okay.
These folks had only come across each other in New Hampshire, the previous state, only a few weeks. But there they were telling each other, "I love you. This was the most amazing experience of my life." And that became the creative inspiration for my thesis of what makes people go from complete strangers that were using pseudonyms, not even their own names, with each other, to standing on top of a mountain, proclaiming their love for one another in a matter of weeks.
Yeah. So what is it? So what is it? What are the ties that bind us together?
and what makes those ties stronger. And I believe that it's adversity. That when we see each other do hard things, I get to see the strength in you. Maybe you get to see the strength in me. And that mutual admiration of each other's strength is how friendship grows.
Yeah. And so, I'm kind of like self-monikered the queen of character strengths, because I believe that they really do give us the opportunity to explore who we are and to present ourselves as our best selves in the world. And whenever we're able to do that, we're able to inspire others, right? To become their best selves. And just for listeners that may not know, the Appalachian Trail is a mountain chain that runs across the eastern seaboard of the United States, and it spans all the way from our northernmost state, which is it all the way up to Maine, Chris?
Yeah, it's up to the northern part of Maine in Baxter State Park, and it begins at the southern terminus on Springer Mountain in northern Georgia.
Okay.
And it's a continuous, I believe, around 2,500 mile stretch of public land that hikers can complete in a single summer or in a single winter, or you can chip away at over the course of your life.
Right. And so a lot of people will hike it by season, right? Because they will travel to certain even parts of the United States during certain seasons so they can actually get the best out of the trail. So yeah, they do. There's a lot of planning that goes into hiking the Appalachian Trail. And so whenever you were hiking the trail, were you hiking by yourself or were you hiking with someone?
I sometimes hike by myself. That to me is probably the best way I can reflect and connect with the divine. I find the divine in nature. But hiking with friends is one of my favorite things to do. Hiking with my brother, my partner, or friends that I've made while hiking alone, a meeting on the trail. So a mixture of both.
Well, so going back to the people that you had met on the trail that were touching the Appalachian Trail sign, and they were having this moment together. What was their response to your presence, and then becoming part of that group? Did you become part of that group? Like how were you accepted in that moment?
I wanted to keep a respectful distance because this was their moment, and I was just trying to learn from it in a small way. So I asked them, "What's it like to walk together versus to walk alone?" And they said, "Well, sometimes walking alone, you can have really long days and you can go real fast, but hiking in the Northeast in the summer, there's thunderstorms, there's mud, there's bugs, there's just so much rain that year.
It's the best condition ever. It's exactly out of a nature walk. It's wonderful.
Yeah. So they said being with somebody else, the mud is easier. You don't mind the bugs as much. And when you get to the end of the day and you're sitting around eating your food, being able to reflect and laugh with somebody else about that makes it all the while.
So it kind of sounds like whenever we're saying, building friendships through adversity, I think that there's a parallel there, not only on the trail, but just in life, but also whenever we think about military service, right? So there's, obviously there's a group of people of the same mindset wanting to accomplish the same things. They go through boot camp. They then become a band of brothers or a band of sisters. And sometimes these are people that you never expected to ever connect with anywhere in your life. But in that moment, in that situation, we find a way to connect, and then we find a way to appreciate, and then those bonds can become stronger. So, so friendship through adversity. Tell me more.
So first around the military, yeah, I think this is available in any group, sports teams,
military, family. It's a tenet of group psychology, and group psychology comes from, in part, evolutionary psychology. Now, there's adaptive value in sharing adversity, and like we said, when you see somebody do something challenging and difficult, you get to see them at their best, which is nice to admire in an emotional sense, but it's also very good information. And that's what I mean by adaptive value. It helps you know, is this person useful? Is this person skillful? Are they of value to have in the tribe? So there's some support in that. It's maybe innate in us to admire that.
Right. Well, look, I'm going to just say this. I can't always say that seeing someone going through adversity, you see them at their best. Because I'm just going to speak from a personal experience. I was trying to learn how to ski, and this was whenever I was an adult. I was trying to ski as an adult. Snowboarded whenever I was younger. Got pretty good at that, and then as time went on, me and the snow just didn't grow. So picked it up later on in life, and I was trying to learn how to ski. And I'm going to say that I was not at my best. I'm going to say that I pretty much was pouting, just really wanted to go get a drink, and eventually just kind of gave up on it. So what does that say about me, Chris? Am I worth being part of a tribe? Would I get kicked out of the tribe because I was a pouter, because I gave up? Because I failed, really.
I mean, maybe the skiing tribe, but it can't make that pervasive. Scout, this is so funny because I once was teaching somebody how to ski, and this person was a phenomenal athlete, a state champion in high school, and they were not getting it.
A state champion of what, though?
Cross country.
Okay, so they can run.
They're an athlete, yeah.
Yeah, on their feet. Skis, it's a completely different situation.
And they had such a time with it that they quit. But they quit in the middle of a ski run. They just lay down on the ski run. They refused to budge, and they demanded that I go get ski patrol to bring them down in a sled. And I'm like, you sure you want to do that? Those people are supposed to be helping people who need it. So I mentioned this not to humiliate this anonymous person, but to say, yes, you may see the strength in one another or not. And that too is good information.
Well, I just want to say that me and this other person, we are the tribe of two. We are the tribe of two. Welcome. I'm here with open arms. And so for somebody to kind of have the audacity to be like, dude, just go get the ski patrol. I know they're only there for emergencies, but for me, this is a personal emergency. Just go get the ski patrol.
I'll send you a picture of the ordeal. It's pretty funny.
Can I post it? I want to show people this. I want people to see
as long as their face isn't in it, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because you don't want to be known as, oh, that guy.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, oh, that guy. Or girl, I don't know. But, okay, so we are talking about, so what we see in people whenever they're put to the test. And how we basically, so as people, how do we measure each other up? So to whose standard are we saying that this is acceptable, that this is good enough, that this is someone, that I want to be part of my circle? Like, how do we do that? Isn't that all subjective, or is it objective from a evolutionary standpoint?
Well, I think it's within the context of your goal hierarchy. You said something earlier when you were talking about the military. These people are sharing. They're sharing an endeavor. They're sharing goals. I mean, you can maybe, if somebody isn't objectively good, right, or maybe there's not these universally valued strengths, but they appeal to you in their striving to achieve a similar goal, that person is useful to you. That person is somebody you admire. So it depends on the context of the person, their goals, and the time frame too. And times have changed over the millennia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we can actually admire people and want to befriend people just because we don't think they're necessarily that talented or they're gifted in what they're attempting, but just from their true nature and their grit and their doggedness and just their determination, because that in of itself can be a character strength or a personality that could be beneficial for the group.
Yeah. I don't think that. So Aristotle has this framework for friendship.
I was wondering whenever he was going to come up.
Yeah, frequently for me.
My bad boy.
And he's got some great friendship quotes too that you can include. But his framework is threefold.
Mm-hmm.
There's friendships that are pleasurable. And think of like a childhood friendship. You play with them because you enjoy playing with them. And when that ceases to become enjoyable, the friendship ends.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's friendships that are useful. And you remember last year, Scout, when we heard Arthur Brooks speak, he talked about real friends compared to deal friends.
Right.
Deal friends are friends that are useful. These are business transactions. These are colleagues that you're just collaborating with, and they are either useful to you or you are useful to them. But when that friendship ceases to be useful, the friendship ends. And then there is what Aristotle calls perfect friendship. And I'm not in love with the name perfect because I think it's maybe a positively ridiculous high bar. But perfect friendship is when you're admiring the inherent goodness or strength in that person, and they see the same, not the same strength, but they see your inherent strength and goodness. And that creates a virtuous cycle of admiration of each other. And he posits that in those perfect friendships, they will both be useful and pleasurable.
We're talking about strength spotting, the strength spotting and the appreciation of what someone brings to the table.
I'd agree. I've been working on how to make this idea actionable for groups and organizations, and I think strength spotting interventions are the best idea so far.
Did you do anything? Did you do empirical research, or were you more of a literature review?
It was a theory paper, literature review, but kind of amassed what the literature is saying right now around adversity and friendship. But next step is empirical. That's what I want to do next. The theory ended up being, once you combine the philosophy with the evolutionary psychology, with the positive psychology, ends up being that physical and psychological health might be able to be improved by growing friendships in the context of adversity. And then I proposed a model that I called virtue resonance, which is similar to Barb Fredrickson's positivity resonance, in that when we're experiencing each other at the best at the same time, it gives us the data points we need to appraise the strengths of our friends, to admire that and to savor that. And that in that resonance, maybe that's how friendship grows.
Okay. And so, just for the listeners too, whenever we talk about Barbara Fredrickson, she is a prolific researcher. She's based at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. And one of her theories is called positive emotions and the upward spiral of positive emotions. And so positive emotions can act as catalysts for happiness and for joy. And so whenever we're talking about friendships, and we've discussed the PERMA model previously on the show. And so positive emotions are definitely part of the PERMA model. And then engagement, meaning relationships, like we're talking today, because friendships definitely are part of that. And then also achievement. And so it sounds like, Chris, like you're kind of touching on the P and the R and the A. So positive emotion, relationships, and achievement, like all of those things coming together in friendship, friendship building through adversity.
I would agree. And I would say that meaning and purpose are also a result of what I was writing about too. Because I think when you ask people to talk about the most meaningful and purposeful situations of their life, they usually include close relationships.
So what would you say is your definition of friendship?
I would say my definition of friendship is a relationship that involves I'll say a positive friendship. The definition of a positive friendship is a close relationship that involves the shared experience with and close admiration of a friend.
So a positive friendship is something that is stronger than just a regular friendship, which you would characterize as an acquaintanceship. So somebody that you're on a first name basis with, and you exchange, niceties like, "Hey, how you doing? Do you still have that rash?" Like stuff like that, but not really think any closer to that. Is that what I'm getting?
Yeah, I mean, even I would call those weak ties, which can be really important. Like waving to the mailman every day. That's a weak tie. You might not know his name, but it's somebody who's in your neighborhood every day, and you have an opportunity to share a positive emotion with. But I wouldn't call that a friendship, because you don't have meaningful shared experiences with them.
So, one of the things that questions that you had earlier whenever we were discussing friendship, and as far as, does friendship have value? Like, is friendship a topic that has face value? Or does it need to be packaged by addressing the opposite, which is loneliness? And so you brought up the pandemic, which was actually, very timely, because I was going to ask you about loneliness, because we all experienced that during the pandemic, and it only worsened actually during the pandemic. So loneliness, and this is just a definition, is the subjective perception of social disconnectedness, and it's emerging as a public health crisis. It was really interesting to find out that in 2018, there was about 50 million US adults that reported feeling lonely. And that increased from approximately 43 million in 2010. And what makes loneliness, I think, such an important, or makes friendship such an important topic, is that it does obviously combat loneliness. And whenever we're able to combat loneliness, we're actually decreasing risks of Alzheimer's, coronary artery disease, and also even just premature death. And because that's how important connection is to us as human beings.
Yeah, loneliness kills.
Yeah, it really can. It really, really can. So tell me what you do right now. You're a teacher, correct?
Yeah, I am a high school math teacher at an emotional support school, which means that it's a school for kids that maybe are clinically anxious or clinically depressed, and are really struggling to find the right educational format to help them learn. So very individualized.
That is very interesting. Like, I never even knew that schools like that existed.
Same.
Like, I basically just knew that there was traditional educational system, Montessorial, public, private, but I never knew. And there was also like the reformative schools, which is probably somewhere I should have ended up in at one point in my life, because I was such a class clown that I was disruptive. I may or may not have thrown an egg I don't know. I can't really say that happened or that it didn't happen. It's anyway.
Still working itself out in the courts. Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, you can't talk too much about it. It's still an open case, but so to hear that there's kids out there that have a place to go, but is that a program that's nationwide, or are you just lucky enough to have that in Doylestown?
No, schools like this, I would say, exist in most suburban areas.
Okay. And so tell me an intervention that you would like to see played out in that kind of environment.
I think building empathy is an intervention that can help in that environment, because when you build empathy, can also have a compounding effect by building a growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
And a growth mindset can help these kids in many practical ways, in academics, socially, in their family. So that's one that I'm working on. There's an intervention that helps builds both empathy and growth mindset, actually through solving math problems, which is a nice slam dunk with all of my areas of interest.
Yeah.
And I think whatever gets these kids interacting face to face without technology is really important too.
Yeah, because targeting friendship mechanisms. So that sounds like that's kind of what you're doing. Like you're sitting down and you're seeing what really grows friendship, right? And what builds these connections between people. And do you find that technology can help with that, or does it hinder us?
I think technology can be a maintenance tool.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's very, and I don't know this empirically, but I don't feel like, in my subjective experience, it's as powerful for building connection than real in life face to face experience.
I think we just haven't evolved. We haven't evolved in our evolved to build relationships in a internet way. I mean, because
Yeah.
for millions of years, we've been participating in relationships in person.
Yeah. I mean, our technology is outpacing our technological evolution is outpacing our biological evolution. And
Mm-hmm.
the Surgeon General put out two really awesome reports recently, one on loneliness and isolation and one on youth and social media.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was encouraging interventions that are, getting kids to spend less time on their phones and experiencing more face to face. And I love being a volleyball coach for that reason.
Yeah.
Phones are in the backpacks, totally away,
Mm-hmm.
and they're playing hard and just experiencing each other on the court. And I think it just feels pure in this day and age.
Next, we start to move away from discussing academia and get more personal when Chris explains how and why adversity can lead us to a life we never expected or even thought possible.
And it's interesting to watch that turn happen sometimes. You hear about the famous people that kind of leave their life of fame to focus on what's most important to them. And it's interesting where else that shows up. There's some research on people that have major life changes, and they have a heart attack or they get sick or they experience something major that changes their perspective and changes their value system.
Mm-hmm.
And it's common that in these experiences, people turn from a more self-centered achievement mindset to an other-orientated service mindset,
Mm-hmm.
which is essentially my experience to a T when I got diagnosed with cancer.
Do you want to tell us how your diagnosis changed your life and how it brought you to where you are today?
Absolutely. Yeah, it changed my life instantly, Scout. I woke up in an ambulance in December 2016 after having a hallucination turned seizure in my office while I was running my staff meeting for my team.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing very well professionally. I was racing my bike at a professional level and training like a maniac, and my relationships were my romantic relationships, namely, were falling apart because of my self-centered lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I woke up in this ambulance, and the first thing I noticed was that the paramedic was mad at me.
Oh, wow.
I was very confused. I'm like, why is this man mad at me? And the second thing that was wrong was that I had just woken up in an ambulance.
Yeah. I mean, because
Yeah.
that was going to be like, why wasn't that the first thing wrong here? How self-centered could you really be whenever you're thinking about the paramedic at this point? Whenever I'd have been like, what am I doing here? Like, that would have been my thing. You're already a better human being than I am. Go ahead.
So then I got to the hospital, which is like a suburban, almost rural area in New Jersey, and everybody else in the emergency room was there for an overdose, it seemed. And I think this guy had heard that I was hallucinating at work and assumed that I had overdosed at work.
You're like, oh look, some more angel dust. Yeah, let me wipe that off your shirt, sir. Yeah.
So
obviously, you weren't hallucinating due to any kind of substance. Like this was.
I was hallucinating because of a tennis ball sized brain tumor in my head. And that was pushing some buttons in there. And so I found out that I had this brain tumor or something major going on in my brain the same day. And I realized I'm not going to work tomorrow. I'm not riding my bike tomorrow.
Yeah.
And in the second thought, I felt a little relieved. Because it was like I had this train station approaching that gave me an opportunity to do something else with my life. Because immediately when you're told, hey, you might have brain cancer, which it turned out that I did, your priorities change immediately.
So just to clarify this, Chris, like you're saying that the diagnosis was almost a relief?
I was saying that the opportunity that the diagnosis presented to do something a little bit different with my life, however much of it I had left, was exciting to me.
Wow.
It's strange. I mean, I don't know if that's a normal or a good reaction, but that is how I felt.
I don't think we need to categorize it. I think we just need to say that was your reaction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was ready. I think I was ready. I think part of the reason I was excited about it is because amazing things were happening around me. Sometimes when you get served the worst luck and awful circumstances, the best of humanity comes to your doorstep.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
And this is December of 2019. And there was a parade of people through my hospital room. I was getting in touch with people I hadn't spoken to in years and getting to see their genuine care and concern, which was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And it was made a little difficult when the pandemic hit and a lot of that went away.
Yeah.
And I got to experience loneliness in my own way. So that was where I became a lot more other oriented when I realized that I probably wasn't going to ride my bike for a little while and that life was going to be a little different.
Yeah. And so whenever, you talk about other oriented, do you mean kind of shifting your focus away from what is it life can do for me to more of what can I do with the rest of my life for others? Like, tell me more about the other perspective.
Yeah. I mean, helping versus achieving.
Yeah. Okay.
And having helping be your achievement.
That's strong words. Those are strong words, Baccash. Having helping being your achievement, having empathy, having charity and generosity be your achievement, having kindness be your achievement. Is that kind of what you're trying to embody?
Yes, that's what I'm trying to live.
Yeah.
And that's why I went to grad school. That's why I went to MAP. That's why I studied what I did. It's why I changed my career from trying to be a business person, making a lot of money, to I make a lot less money being a math teacher, but it's probably the most rewarding work I've ever done.
So what are some of the take-home messages that you want people to have from about friendship and its value, what it's worth, and how to build it?
I want to encourage people to try to do something difficult with somebody else. And that can be something fun. That can be a chosen adversity, like climbing a mountain, organizing an event, taking on a big challenge at work. And when that happens, turn your eye to the strengths that come forward in yourself and in your peer. And the other side of that is when adversity finds you. And when you find yourself in a tragedy, small or large, watch the best of humanity come out. To that end, I want to encourage people to try being a helper, either by profession or by volunteer. Mostly because it feels great, really rewarding. And I think it's for me, it's the best time spent. Those would be the big two.
Okay. Do you have someone in your life that you would call an everyday hero? Somebody who does something small but makes a large impact on your day?
Yeah. My mother. My mother. When I moved home after my diagnosis, and I spent 2.5 years. Geez, I should be better at math than this. Yeah. All of 2020, all of 2021, all of 2022. Yeah. So 3.5 years roughly living back at my parents' house as a late 20 something and early 30 something. I got to become reacquainted and refamiliarized, just due to proximity, with my mother's love, which as an adult who can appreciate it from an objective distance a little bit better with a mostly fully formed brain, was fascinating, awe-inspiring, and frequently brings me to tears just thinking about. And she's that everyday hero that you so aptly name, who's always caring for somebody beyond herself, who's always thinking about the greater good, takes care of her family, who takes care of her friends. She's awe-inspiring.
What's your mom's name, Chris?
Her name is Jeanette.
So Jeanette is now our second everyday hero here on Positively Ridiculous podcast. And we just want to thank Jeanette for making such an amazing human being and for also just being there to support that amazing human being through one of the roughest times of his life, I'm sure.
Yeah. Well said, Scout.
Oh. So, Mr. Sunshine, I want to ask you something else. So we're going to go talk about the day that your life changed. And we're going to talk about something very specific. And I'm going to play you a clip, and I want you to tell me what memory this brings back to you. I just played Sturgill Simpson, Remember to Breathe.
Yep.
Yep. And so I'm guessing that probably brings back some memories, and I'm not sure if they were good or if they were bad, but
Oh, it's so layered.
yeah, I'd say it is. So why don't you tell me why that song, why that artist has meaning for you?
Sure. As I mentioned, in that time of my life, this is 2019, I'm training like a madman. And I was also working full time. I had a desk job that had a commute. So a lot of my training was happening in the late evenings. And one of my tricks for getting through a workout when I didn't necessarily really feel like it, or maybe I was kind of tired, was I would listen to the same music over and over again so I could lose myself in it. It was stimulating, and it would block everything else out, but it wasn't distracting because I wasn't trying to, listen to a new song. It was familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the albums I was listening to over and over again was Sturgill Simpson's Sound and Fury album, which had come out that fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved it. It's a old school rock and roll album, and it's really creative lyrics. It's great.
Mm-hmm.
And that song that you played has a driving drum beat, and it was really great. So I was turning to it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's probably safe to say that I'd listened to that song at least a few dozen times recently. Mm-hmm. And it was a Monday. I was running my staff meeting. I was probably fairly over-caffeinated. Mm. And I begin to have an auditory hallucination. It happens to be that song. And auditory hallucination, when it comes to music, is like, it's like having a song stuck in your head, but you're hearing it.
Yeah.
The line is blurred between what you're experiencing in your cognition and what your senses are picking up.
Yeah.
And
I mean, that had to be kind of scary though, to kind of be like, who is in my head?
For me, the dominant emotion was always interest.
Oh, okay.
I was like, this is crazy. And it happened before. It was happening when I would get back from like a long 6-7 hour bike ride, mm-hmm. have an espresso and take a hot shower. And I would have smaller ones. I'm like, well, I guess this is a new level of being tired that I haven't experienced before.
Sure.
And kind of brush it off, and I would lay down, have a drink of water, and it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But the one during my staff meeting was on another level, exponentially so. Mm-hmm. And I was also having an out-of-body experience, as if I was watching the whole thing in the third person.
Oh, gosh.
And I was like watching the whole room in the third person. So like, interest is turning over to fascination. Uh-huh. And so I'm also like leading this team, running the meeting. So I turn to my team and say, hey guys, this is a thing that's been happening, but not like this. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's about to happen, but something is.
Yeah. I mean, this whole scene, and like, whenever you hear this music of Sturgill Simpson, Remember to Breathe, it's all very, it's very funky and it's kind of psychedelic. And so as you're setting this scene and you're describing what's happening with this out-of-body experience, it all sounds very Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, right? It's just almost movie-like. It's just surreal to even think that you're experiencing an out-of-body experience while at the same time hearing this music play. It's almost like a scene from a movie.
Yeah, when we made a documentary, friends and I, about recovering from cancer and returning to bike racing a little bit, and we wanted to make this scene, but we didn't really have the production budget or resources at the time to do it. We were trying to do it in the pandemic, but we wanted to create this scene because you're right, it is trippy, it is almost cinematic, it is kind of psychedelic.
Yeah. I find it so interesting that you didn't find it scary. You weren't fearful. You were interested. Like your interest was piqued in this moment.
Yeah.
When did that change though? Like when did you just realize this isn't interesting anymore? This is serious. Was it when you woke up in the ambulance?
No, never. It hasn't ceased to be interesting to this day.
Wow. Okay.
And I've been sad about my diagnosis, and I've been fearful of mostly the treatment. But yeah, let's finish the story so your listeners aren't wondering what happens after I hear music. So having that out-of-body experience, I tell my team something's up, and then I go dark. I apparently have a massive seizure, and my team springs into action. The athlete of the team, this is a college quarterback, it bolts out of the room, and I was told, literally ran into an emergency medical technician that was already in the building.
Wow.
Like somebody had gotten a paper cut and jumped the gun and called 911. So he just happened to be there for waiting for me.
Well, thank goodness that whiner made a situation into something fortuitous. Thank goodness.
Yeah, that was convenient. And then, yes, I wake up in the ambulance, a little confused, and that catches us up to where we left off.
Yeah. Chris, it just amazes me that you're still fascinated to this day. And I guess having not lived through a situation like that or a diagnosis like that, I can't understand fascination. But I just find that to be, very inspiring because you're living your life in a way that isn't fearful, but curious. And I think that curiosity is what makes your life now so much more rich. And whenever you tell your story, that much more enriching for others because because you're showing that there's another way to live with a diagnosis that that is scary, that doesn't always end well. And you're showing great courage and I'm just amazed by you. That's really amazing.
Thanks, Scout. It's
You're
really
welcome.
kind of you to say. Yeah,
Well,
there's something interesting about me. One of the main psychological markers that's measured sometimes is openness to experience. And I've always been through the roof on openness to experience. And I think that's helped me
yeah.
in this experience.
Yeah.
And I'm relatively lucky in that I'm living a fairly normal life right now.
Mm-hmm.
I get to keep trying new things and taking risks and trying new careers and traveling and falling in love and living a normal, healthy life without much pain or without daily symptoms that affect me too much.
Yeah.
And sometimes I feel guilty about that because so much of the cancer narrative is not that for people and it's not hopeful. But statistically, sometimes it is.
Sure.
And I think it's important to demonstrate that sometimes you can get an awful diagnosis, go through a lot of stuff, and then go on to have a pretty okay life. Because I think that sometimes vicariously can help people be hopeful.
Yeah. Well, so just, I met you obviously before I knew your story. Because again, we met at a coffee shop in Philadelphia, and then walked 3 blocks down the street, just kind of like talking and chatting. And so, that's how you and I had started this friendship. I admired you and liked you from the start. And then the more that I learn about your story and the more I learn about who you innately are, I just count myself so fortunate to be a witness to your strength and to your curiosity and to your courage and also just to your loving nature. And I find that not only to be inspiring, but it leaves me awestruck sometimes. And you're the kind of like your story, your kind of attitude, your kind of approach to adversity and life are one of the reasons why I believe so much in Positively Ridiculous podcast, because I want stories like yours to really come to the forefront. And I want people to hear that there's another way to live, and that is not in fear, but with curiosity and in awe, and also generously and kind and with kindness and love and hope. And you bring all of those things to the table for me, and you bring all of those things to this podcast. And I just can't thank you enough.
Well, Scout, thank you so much. It's an honor to be able to get to share this story a little bit. And one of the other feelings I felt over and over again in the hospital was maybe this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to help someone. And that's what I'm trying to dedicate my life to. And people like you are helping out in that cause big time.
Well, it's my complete and utter honor. So Chris, what is the title of the documentary that you and your friends made?
It is called Mountains We Climb, and it is currently not publicly available, but that'll be changing very soon. You can read about it by Googling the name of the documentary, by Googling me, and we should be releasing it on a streaming platform very soon.
Awesome. That is great to hear. That would be a great story to definitely to be a part of and to get to hear more about. So thanks for that, Chris.
You got it.
Hi there, you groupies for good. Please don't forget to like, follow, rate, and find us on all major streaming services and at positivelyridiculouspodcast.com or on Patreon, where you can support us and our hard work. We also want your feedback and look forward to welcoming you into this community for good. Talk soon. Well, what a journey Chris has had, what insight he can share, and what hope he brings into the world. Adversity has long been recognized as a powerful catalyst for building strong and lasting relationships. When faced with challenges and setbacks, individuals often rely on their character's strengths to navigate through difficult times. Exhibiting positive traits or qualities plays a critical role in fostering meaningful connections. One character's strength that emerges during adversity most frequently is resilience. Resilient individuals can bounce back from setback and face challenges head on. This strength enables them to inspire and uplift their friends, providing support and encouragement during tough times. But by displaying resilience, individuals showcase their strength and determination, which can motivate their friends to persevere through their own adversities. The resilience that Chris displays is spectacular. And what stops me dead in my tracks is his ability to remain open to experiences and people, despite a diagnosis that would cause many to retreat into fear and regret. He's done more than write an exciting paper on friendship and how to make lifelong bonds. He has shown us that he's more than just all legs, despite what his inseam says. Chris has shown us an alternative reaction to life-threatening adversity, and it's not fear, not retreat, and not blame. He chooses courage, hope, love, and curiosity. Let us all be that brave. Be sure to visit positivelyridiculouspodcast.com for episode resources and downloads. Don't forget to sign up for new episode notifications, shop our merch, and donate. You can also find us on Facebook. Just search Positively Ridiculous Talk. Thanks for stopping by, and remember, you belong here for good.